Hello, welcome. Thank you for joining. Shout out to Alexa. Shout out to Floretta. Shout out to Alina. Sorry if I mispronounce your name. Shout out to Kylie. Shout out to Harley. Shout out to... You're welcome. Hello everyone, welcome. Write your name in the chat if you want me to shout you out. Thank you for being here. Welcome. Thank you, Kylie. Or Kat. Thank you so much. I truly appreciate it. Shout out to Autumn. Shout out to Romelia. Shout out to the twins. Shout out to is it Azalea? Azalea? Sorry if I mispronounce your name. Shout out to Camera or Camera. Sorry if I mispronounce your name. Shout out to Casey. Thank you, Casey. Shout out to Blakely. Shout out to Waylon. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Evelyn. Thank you, Evelyn. Shout out to Eliza. Shout out to Ariella. Shout out to Kylis. Sorry if I mispronounce your name. Shout out to Fatima. Shout out to Yason. Sorry if I mispronounce your name. Shout out to Kalani. Shout out to Ada. Shout out to Hasanat. Shout out to Valley. Sorry if I mispronounce your name. Shout out to Vicky. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Caroline. Shout out to Harshvi. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Lacey. Shout out to Blessing. Shout out to Sana. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Lily. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Chica. Shout out to Serenity. Shout out to Peyton. Shout out to Claire. Shout out to Jaden. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Zia. Shout out to Ali. Shout out to Lara. Shout out to Melissa. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Safi. Shout out to Meadow. Shout out to Anaya. Shout out to Cadence. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Ekta. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Juliet. Shout out to Destiny. Shout out to Hansika. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Lisa. Shout out to Nikki. Shout out to Braylon. Leave a like if you're enjoying the live stream. Thank you for being here. Shout out to Julia. Shout out to Emmy. Shout out to Tatiana. Shout out to Elisa. Shout out to Emmeline, or Emmeline. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Michaela. Shout out to Sonia. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Zuleika. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Grace. Shout out to Everly. Shout out to Tiffany. Shout out to Maddie. Shout out to Geety. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Hazel. Shout out to AJ. Shout out to Harper. Shout out to Rose. Shout out to Yariali. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Betty. Shout out to Brielle. Shout out to Riley. Shout out to Journey. Shout out to Hasanat. Shout out to Lakshita. Sorry, thank you for your patience. Shout out to Leanna. I just noticed I messed up Tiffany's name. I don't know if Tiffany's still here, but shout out to Tiffany. Sorry for messing up your name. My bad. I just noticed I messed up. Shout out to Myra. Thank you everyone for your patience. Shout out to Annabelle. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to AJ, I got you right here. Shout out to Camila. Shout out to Pearl. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Kimber. Shout out to Lily. You're welcome, Myra. Shout out to Reba. Sorry if I mispronounce your name. Shout out to Jessie. Shout out to Lillian. Shout out to Piper. Shout out to John. Shout out to Vivi. Shout out to Myla. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Dory. Shout out to Kate. Shout out to Jacob. Shout out to Veronica. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Molly. Shout out to Danielle. Shout out to Ross. Shout out to Lance. Shout out to Layla. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Samara. Shout out to Sophia. Shout out to Grace. Shout out to these people. On to the next page. Thank you so much for being here. Write your name in the chat if you want me to shout you out. Also, leave a like if you're enjoying the live stream. Oh, I forgot to put the title. I live stream and I also post other content on my channel. I hope you can check it out and support. I would truly appreciate it. Shout out to Zariah. Shout out to Cherish. Shout out to Zoe. Shout out to Kaylin. Shout out to Candice. Shout out to Autumn. Shout out to Tommy. Shout out to Ariana. Shout out to Jenny. Shout out to Harshvi. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Phoenix. Shout out to Ross. Shout out to Bear. Shout out to Emily. Shout out to Kenzie. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Yari. Shout out to Kennedy. Shout out to Rosa. Shout out to Nicole. Shout out to Annabella. Shout out to Aubrey. Shout out to Miranda. Excuse me. Shout out to Mila. Shout out to Liam. Shout out to Goblin. Shout out to Caleb. Shout out to Genesis. Shout out to Lainey, or Lonnie, sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Kamaya. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Damien. Shout out to Tyla. Shout out to Miranda. Shout out to Grayson. Shout out to Gabriella. Shout out to Melanie. Shout out to Goofy Boofy. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Violet. Shout out to Amrita. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Katie. Shout out to Layla. Shout out to Avery. Shout out to Haley. Shout out to Talia. Shout out to Jose. Shout out to Amy. Shout out to Layla. Shout out to Sham. Shout out to Bianca. Shout out to Tyler. Shout out to Luna. Shout out to Sienna. Shout out to Anthony. Shout out to Caleb. Shout out to Lakin. Sorry if I mispronounce your name. Shout out to 11. 11? I don't know if I misread that one. Shout out to Alex. Shout out to Carlos. Shout out to Nova. Shout out to Haven. Shout out to Elena. Shout out to Adria. Shout out to Kaylee. Shout out to, thank you, Cray Cray Simrin. I truly appreciate it. Thank you for your support. Shout out to Cray Cray. Shout out to Hazley. Shout out to Layla. Shout out to Mirab. Shout out to Ariana. Shout out to Paisley. Shout out to Luna. Shout out to Miranda. Shout out to Kalina, or Kaylina. Sorry if I mispronounced her name. Shout out to Everly. Shout out to Julia. Shout out to Esther. Shout out to Freya. Shout out to Caitlin. Shout out to Sage. Shout out to Isabel. Shout out to Shannon. Shout out to Malaysia. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to, oh, Malaysia. There we go. Shout out to Zyla. Shout out to, you're welcome, Shannon. Shout out to Sophia, thank you. Shout out to Stella. Shout out to Axel. Shout out to Stacy. Shout out to Emma. Shout out to Jackson. Shout out to Ruhi. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Jace. Shout out to John. Shout out to Cheyenne. Shout out to John. Oh, I just put John. Shout out to Surakarta. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Camila. Shout out to Sierra. Shout out to Timmy. Shout out to Laurel. Shout out to Grace. Shout out to Quinn. Shout out to these people. On to the next page. Thank you so much for being here, everyone. Write your name if you want me to shout you out. Also, check out my channel. I post other content. I hope you can check it out and support. I would truly appreciate it. Thank you so much for being here. Shout out to Jelana. Shout out to Brooke. Shout out to Kimberly. Shout out to Bryn. Shout out to Grace. Shout out to Aubrey. Shout out to Yvonne. Shout out to Lindsay. What was it? Lindsley. Shout out to Amaya. Shout out to Ariana. Shout out to Damien. Shout out to Annabelle. Shout out to Kelsey. Shout out to Allison. Shout out to Gretchen. Shout out to Juwon. Sorry if I mispronounce your name. Shout out to Katie. Shout out to Emmanuel. Shout out to Talia. Shout out to Arbella. Shout out to Gloria. Shout out to Kendallin. Shout out to Assis. Sorry if I mispronounce your name. Shout out to Gracie. Shout out to Elena. Shout out to Paisley. Shout out to Amir. Shout out to Crimson. Shout out to Zoe. Shout out to Annie. Shout out to Derek. Shout out to Alexa. Shout out to Sophia. Shout out to Allie. Shout out to Junsu. Sorry if I mispronounced her name. Shout out to Lara, Raj. Shout out to Lily. Shout out to Millie. Shout out to Anna. Shout out to Archer. Shout out to Carmen. Shout out to Olivia. Shout out to Cat's Eye. Shout out to Jarissa. Shout out to Rumi. Shout out to Ruby. Shout out to Brooke. Shout out to John. Shout out to Clara. Shout out to Carter. Shout out to Ronaldo. Shout out to Matt. Shout out to Mila. Shout out to Jayla. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Hunter. Shout out to Xavier. Shout out to Serenity. Shout out to Rebecca. Shout out to Soledad. Shout out to LeBron. Shout out to Maddox. Shout out to Vivi. Shout out to Kate. Shout out to Yunche. Shout out to Joseph. Shout out to Avery. Shout out to Amy, or Ami, sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Lucy. Shout out to Kennedy. Shout out to Scarlett. Shout out to Jimena. Shout out to Mackenzie. Shout out to Boston. Shout out to Kinsley. Shout out to Cece. Leave a like if you're enjoying the live stream. Thank you so much for being here. Shout out to Affy. Shout out to Jackie. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Aubrey. Shout out to Mauve or Maeve. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Bailey. Jackie, I got you. Shout out to Levi. Shout out to Presley. Shout out to Emma. Shout out to Jaturi. Shout out to Jacob. Shout out to Deanna, or Deanna, sorry if I mispronounce your name. Shout out to Cara. Shout out to Grayson. Shout out to Riley. Shout out to London. Shout out to Alyssa. Shout out to Celine. Shout out to Selena. Shout out to Peranza. Sorry if I mispronounce your name. Shout out to Alexis. Shout out to Hadley. Shout out to Piper. Shout out to Aniston. Shout out to Jackson. Shout out to Val. Shout out to these people. On to the next page. Thank you so much for being here. Write your name in the chat if you want me to shout you out. Also, thank you for your patience. I wish I could write faster, but I try my best. So thank you so much for waiting and writing your name. I truly appreciate it. Shout out to Nico. Shout out to Samantha. Shout out to Donica. Sorry if I mispronounce your name. Shout out to Ibrahim. Shout out to Kathy. Shout out to Julia. Shout out to Malachi. Shout out to Gretchen. Shout out to Carson. Shout out to Selena. Shout out to Steven. Shout out to Cassidy. Shout out to Natalie. Shout out to Hannah. Shout out to Lexi. Shout out to Atrisa. Sorry if I mispronounce your name. Shout out to Astrid. Shout out to Nora. Shout out to Emma. Shout out to Murphy. Shout out to Merritt. Uh-oh, I don't think I spelled that correctly. No, I didn't. Sorry. Shout out to Merritt. There we go. Shout out to Maggie. Shout out to Genesis. Shout out to Pablo. Shout out to Leah. Shout out to Alisa. Shout out to Cassie. Shout out to Kensington. Shout out to Nadia. Shout out to Ra. Sorry if I mispronounce your name. Shout out to Maddie. Shout out to Ash. Shout out to Amy. Thank you for showing me how to pronounce your name. Shout out to Michaela. Shout out to D'Angelo. Or D'Angelo, sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Rihanna. Shout out to Kayla. Shout out to Brandy. Shout out to Frankie. Shout out to Kristen. Shout out to Ava. Shout out to Muffin. Shout out to Kellen. Shout out to Nova. Shout out to Emily. Shout out to Lovika. Sorry if I mispronounce your name. Shout out to Alexis. Whoops. Shout out to Donica. Shout out to Josh. Shout out to Tristan. Shout out to Ridley. Shout out to Alexis. Shout out to Mackenzie. Shout out to Ryder. Shout out to Vanessa. Shout out to Lalin. Sorry if I mispronounce your name. Shout out to Kendall. Shout out to Harmony. Shout out to Sunny. Shout out to Juliet. Shout out to Elodie. Or Elodie. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Austin. Shout out to Hamideh. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Ezra. Shout out to Everly. Shout out to Bean. Shout out to Izzy. Shout out to Riri. Shout out to Camry. Shout out to Luis. Shout out to Nora. Shout out to Camila. Shout out to Brooklyn. Whoops, I messed up. Brooklyn. There we go. Shout out to May. Shout out to Elika. Shout out to Veronica. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Nadia. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Callie. Shout out to Erin. Shout out to Kayla. Shout out to Ava. Shout out to Seth. Shout out to, excuse me, Abby. Shout out to Cora. Shout out to Holly. Shout out to Stella. Shout out to Leah or Leah. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Magic. Shout out to Olivia. Shout out to Lily. Shout out to David or David. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Afaz. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Diggs. Shout out to Zana. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Isiani. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Ellie. Shout out to Aubrey. Shout out to Sophia. Shout out to Maggie. Shout out to Brazil. Shout out to David. Shout out to Ian. Shout out to Nafas. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Kira. Shout out to Evelyn. Shout out to Presley. Shout out to Cupcake. Shout out to Navraz. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Isabella. Shout out to Levi. Shout out to Tracy. Shout out to Lydia. Shout out to Renee. Shout out to Ali. Shout out to Esther. Shout out to Mike. Shout out to these people. On to the next page. Thank you so much for being here. Please like and subscribe if you enjoy the shout outs. I also post other content. I hope you can check it out and support as well. I would truly appreciate it. Shout out to Kinsley. Shout out to Christina. Shout out to Avery. Shout out to Allie. Shout out to Bella. Shout out to Milo. Shout out to Mia. Shout out to Fatima. Shout out to Gage. Whoopsie. There we go. Shout out to Mikey. Shout out to Cecilia. Shout out to Tracy. Shout out to Remy. Shout out to Lacey. Shout out to Juvan. Shout out to Andrea. Shout out to Rebecca. Shout out to Alex. Shout out to Imana. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Ellie. Shout out to Carmela. Shout out to Maria. Shout out to Denise. Shout out to Exlon. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Emma. Leave a like if you're enjoying the live stream. Thank you so much for being here. Shout out to Ava. Shout out to Naledi. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Samaya. Shout out to Natasha. My channel is this NessDIYcorner. I'm Ness. And I do live streams and I post other content that I hope you can check out as well. Shout out to Sydney. Shout out to Laura. Shout out to JC. Shout out to Derek. Shout out to Oakland. Shout out to Lucas. Shout out to Maddie. Shout out to Abby. Shout out to Neri. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Debbie. Shout out to Chloe. Shout out to Palmer. Shout out to Daniela. Shout out to Chloe, I got you. Shout out to Jurin. Shout out to Jose. Shout out to Tayana. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Sherilyn. Or Sherlyn. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Delaney. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Montse. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Adeline. Happy birthday. Shout out to Hampton. Shout out to Wemily. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Alasia. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Briley. Shout out to Leah. Shout out to Abigail. Shout out to Joyce. Shout out to Teddy. Shout out to Brennelly. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Owen. Shout out to Tegan. Shout out to Timothy. Shout out to Cora? There we go. Shout out to Natina. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Sola. Shout out to Ella. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Nicole. Shout out to Braylon. Shout out to Ryan. Shout out to Crystal. Shout out to Montica. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Cami. Shout out to Layla. Shout out to Mia. Shout out to Jonah. Shout out to Oakland. Shout out to Sandaya, or sorry if I mispronounced her name. Shout out to Viridiana. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Devaya. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Marley. Happy birthday, Marley. Shout out to Sev or Steve. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Gina. Shout out to Edgar. Shout out to Lola. Shout out to Letty. Shout out to Soph. Shout out to Rebecca. Shout out to Mary. Shout out to Alan. Shout out to Angelica. Shout out to Fiona. Shout out to Wedson. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Meredith. Shout out to David. Shout out to Charlene. Shout out to Jalen. Shout out to Espen. Shout out to Gracie. Shout out to Lisa. Shout out to Mia. Shout out to Armani. Shout out to Wyatt. Shout out to these people. On to the next page. Leave a like if you like the live stream. We're almost at 200 likes. Thank you so much for your support. Thank you for being here. I truly appreciate it. Shout out to Rainier. Shout out to Allison. Shout out to Lily. Shout out to Brianna. Shout out to Brookston. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Kayla. Shout out to Ankush. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Sarah. Shout out to Paisley. Shout out to Elizabeth. Shout out to Malia. Shout out to Draco. Shout out to Bella. Shout out to Kendley. Shout out to Chloe. Shout out to Ashton. Shout out to Iman. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Mary or Marie, sorry if I mispronounce your name. Shout out to Angie. Shout out to Malika. Sorry if I mispronounce your name. Shout out to Catalina. Shout out to Miracles. Shout out to Denise. Excuse me. Shout out to Mishka. Sorry if I mispronounce your name. Shout out to, you're welcome, Angie. Shout out to Kenny. Shout out to, is it Male? Mile? I'm so sorry if I mispronounce your name. Shout out to Avni. Shout out to Hope. Shout out to Penelope. Shout out to Crade. Shout out to Darlet. Shout out to Milena. Shout out to Zoe. Shout out to Oz or Oz. Sorry if I mispronounce your name. Shout out to Talitha. Sorry if I mispronounce your name. Shout out to Grace. Shout out to Anna. Whoops, I messed up. Anna. Shout out to Aisha or Aisha. Sorry if I mispronounced her name. Shout out to Lauren. Shout out to Delilah. Thank you. Thank you for your support. Shout out to Lauren. Oh, I already put Lauren. Shout out to Ryan. Shout out to Naya. Shout out to Iris. Shout out to, you're welcome. Thank you for your support. Shout out to Grace. Shout out to Adrielle. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. You're welcome, Iris. Shout out to Flash. Shout out to Kaisley. You're welcome, Ryan. Shout out to Carla. Shout out to Manvi. Yadav. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Naomi. Leave a like if you're enjoying the live stream. Oh no, Juliet, why are you mad? Shout out to Kaisley. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Mia. Shout out to Jalen. Shout out to Mackenzie. Don't worry, I'll write your name. Thank you for your patience. Shout out to Kareem. Shout out to Connor. You're welcome. Shout out to Kiara or Ciara. Sorry if I mispronounce your name. Shout out to Dustin. Shout out to Nayeli. Shout out to Music as Studio. What name do you want me to put? Shout out to Cozy. Shout out to Levi. Shout out to Delilah. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Rowan. Shout out to Flip West. Sorry if I mispronounce your name. Shout out to Kareem. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Brookston. Whoops, I messed up. Shout out to Fabroon. Shout out to Alan. Shout out to Jojo. Shout out to Alan. Oh, I already put Alan. Thank you, Kareem. Shout out to Kinsley. Shout out to Angie. Thank you, Tina. Shout out to Tina. Shout out to Lydia. Shout out to Tammy. Leave a like if you're enjoying the live stream. Thank you so much for being here. Shout out to Coca. Shout out to Emma. Shout out to, is it Deacon? Shout out to Juliet. Thank you. Shout out to Caleb. Shout out to Adeline. Shout out to Caroline. Shout out to John. Shout out to Santiago. Shout out to Allison. Shout out to Evie. Shout out to Rami. Shout out to Lyndon. Shout out to Olivia. Excuse me. Shout out to Camila. Shout out to Ness. Shout out to Emma. Shout out to Montica. Shout out to Kyler. Shout out to Harlow. Shout out to Alicia. Shout out to Unafi. Shout out to Caleb. Shout out to Soul. Shout out to Caleb, I got you. Shout out to Avery. Thank you, Delilah, for your support. I truly appreciate it. Shout out to Avery. Shout out to Valeria. Shout out to Jasneet. Shout out to Soul. Thank you, Kareem. Shout out to Olivia. Shout out to Marina. I'm gonna write your name again because it's kind of squished over there. Shout out to Marina. Shout out to Avery. Shout out to Olivia. Shout out to Mary. Shout out to Lila. Shout out to Mariano. I'm gonna put Mariano over here so it fits. Shout out to Tara. Shout out to Emma. Shout out to Jackie. Shout out to Blakely. I'm gonna put Blakely over here so it fits. Shout out to Cam. Shout out to Connie. Shout out to Briar. Shout out to Caleb. Shout out to Tally. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Zoe. Shout out to these people. Please like and subscribe if you enjoy my live streams. I also post other content that I hope you can check out on my channel. My channel is NessDIYcorner. I also live stream every day, so I hope to see you there. Please subscribe. I would truly appreciate it. And check out my channel and leave likes around my other content. I would truly appreciate it. Thank you so much. I will see you next time. Take care, everyone. Bye.